Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. The room was dimly lit, and the air smelled of sweat and desire intertwined. Every touch of mine, every kiss, was like a spark that ignited the longing deep inside me, burning all thoughts of guilt to ashes and leaving only pure passion churning in my chest. My body was pressed against a man who was not my husband. His name was Evan. The sheets crumpled into a ball under our movements, like witnesses to this secret. His breathing was heavy and rapid as he whispered against my ear, "Tell me what you want." The voice was low, with a hint of rough seduction. I gasped in reply, my voice shaky but undisguised, "You. I want you, all of you." My confession made his eyes burn even hotter, and he satisfied my cravings until we were both exhausted. When he was done, he rolled over and lay next to me, pulling me into his arms. His body heat was warm and unfamiliar, and I leaned into his chest, listening to his gradually steadying heartbeat. After a few minutes of silence, he got up and walked to the bathroom, where the sound of water came quickly. I lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling, reflecting on the afterglow of what I had just experienced, thinking, this feels so good, but it's also so tiring. I need to rest and refresh myself because I'll have to accompany James again tonight if he's in the mood. James, my husband, is always so busy with work that he sometimes forgets that there is this side to our marriage. I rolled over, deciding to wait until Evan left to change the sheets, take a shower, and clean up any traces. There was still plenty of time. Evan showers much faster than he does in bed. He dressed, his hair still dripping, and gingerly made his way downstairs. I heard his car keys rattle on the table and thought he probably forgot something. Just as I was about to get up to check, there was a soft thud at the front door. I frowned, my heart beating steeply, not the sound of Evan leaving, but the movement of someone coming in. Footsteps came up the stairs, steady and familiar. Before I could gather my thoughts, James appeared in the bedroom doorway. He was tall, blocking the light from the hallway outside the door, but instead of the usual tiredness, his face held a somberness I'd never seen before. "Why are you back so early?" I tried to sound as natural as possible, tugging the covers over my not yet packed body. His gaze swept across the room, stopping on me before moving to the half-drunk glass of water on the nightstand. It wasn't my glass. His voice was low, almost like a whisper, but cold enough to make me shiver. "I think the more important question is, what are you doing here? Who was that guy who just ran out?" My mind went blank, and all my excuses were like smoke blown away by the wind. Evan must have hit James in a panic and didn't stop to explain. I gulped and tried to squeeze out a smile. "You're sick? How come you didn't go to the game?" James' face darkened even more as he took a step forward, hands in his pockets as if restraining something. "Don't change the subject, Lily. Who was that guy? What are you doing here?" His tone was frighteningly calm, and I knew this wasn't how he usually looked when he was angry. He yelled when he was angry, but now this quietness sent a chill down my spine. I sat up and tried to look composed. "James, baby, come on. It's just sex, nothing more. I love you, and only you." I reached out and tried to touch his arm, but he took a step back, like he was avoiding something dirty. I bit my lip and continued. You know, I have needs, and you're so busy sometimes, and I don't want to stress you out, so dash. So you got a man back in our bed?" His voice finally raised a little, but not in anger, more like an incredulous question. He looked around the room, his eyes landing on the messy sheets before returning to my face. "You think I'm going to take this? Do you think I'd say, 'Oh, it's okay, honey, just be happy'?" I took a deep breath and tried to sound sincere. "No, I didn't mean that. I just think, if you calm down and think about it, you'll understand. I didn't betray you, really. It doesn't mean I don't love you. I just need more, and you dash." I stopped because the look in his eyes made me say no more. It was a mixture of pain and anger that I had never seen on his face before. "You need more." He repeated my words as if chewing on something bitter, then sneered. "Okay, Lily, I understand. You need more, so go ahead. I'm so angry right now, I might do something I'll regret. I've got to go for a walk." He turned on his heel and walked away, his footsteps echoing on the stairs, ending with the loud thud of the front door being slammed hard. I froze in bed, my heart beating like a drum. I didn't expect him to be so angry. In my imagination, he'd be angry for a while, but eventually calm down, accept my explanation, and maybe even feel a little guilty that he really didn't satisfy me much. I know James. He's not the type to strike on impulse. He's always sensible beyond reason. Just give him some time and space, and he'll come back. I said to myself, this is just a little bump in the road. We'll get through it. I slowly got up, bare feet on the floor, and began to clean up my room. I ripped the sheets off and threw them in the laundry basket, then walked into the bathroom for a hot shower. The water washed over my skin, but I felt my head was in turmoil. After my shower, I changed into a simple white shirt and jeans and looked in the mirror to make sure I didn't look any different. I went downstairs to get a glass of water and sat on the couch waiting for James to come back. I'm sure he just needs to cool off, and he won't really leave me. He loves me. I know he does. Time passed by, and it was getting dark outside the window. I started to get a little uneasy, but reassured myself that he was just out for a walk, maybe to the bar for a drink or to talk to a friend. He won't go too far. But when the hands pointed to 9 p.m. and there was still no movement outside the door, my heart began to sink. I picked up my phone and tried to send him a message, but found my finger stopped on the screen, unsure of what to say. I'm sorry seems too flippant, and I love you seems perfunctory. I put my phone down and hugged my knees, burying my head in my arms. Finally, a little after 10, I heard the key turn. The door opened, and James walked in, smelling faintly of alcohol. Without looking at me, he went straight to the kitchen and poured a glass of water and stood there drinking it. I stood up and approached him cautiously. James, are you okay? He turned around, his eyes cold as ice. What do you think, Lily? Do you think I'd be okay with my wife sleeping with another man after I walked in on her? His voice wasn't high, but it pierced me like a knife. I opened my mouth to explain, but he cut me off. Stop it. I don't want to hear it. I just want to know one thing now. Who was that guy? His name is Evan. Just a regular friend, nothing special. I whispered, trying to make this sound less serious. Really, James, he means nothing to me. Nothing. He puts down his glass, braces his hands on the cooking table, and stares at me. Then why did you let him into our home? Why did you let him sleep in our bed? You expect me to believe it's nothing? I felt a wave of panic, but managed to say stiffly, I told you, it's just sex. I have no emotional betrayal. I still love you, James. I have needs, and you're too tired sometimes, and I don't want to push you. He was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly, as if digesting my words. I was relieved to think he was finally starting to understand. But his next words froze me in my tracks. Okay, Lily. Since you have needs, I have mine. We'll see. Without another word, he turned and walked upstairs, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen, my heart beating like it was going to explode. I didn't know what he meant by that, but I told myself he was just angry and saying it off the top of his head. If I give him time, he'll understand. He wouldn't really leave me or really do anything out of the ordinary. He's James, my James, always coming back to me. I just need to be patient and wait for him to cool off. James walked upstairs, and the bedroom door was slammed shut with such force that the sound hit me like a hammer in the heart. I stood in the kitchen, the unfinished glass of water still clutched in my hand, my mind a mess. He said, "We'll see about that," which echoed in my ears like a bad omen. I told myself he was just angry and blurting it out. He won't really get on my case. He's James. He'll always calm down and think things through. As long as I lay low and give him some space, this will pass. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself, then went upstairs to change my clothes and clean myself up like nothing had happened. The sheets had been thrown in the washing machine, and I sprayed some more air freshener to make sure there wasn't a single odor in the room. I'll talk to him when he's cooled off. He'll understand me. The next morning, James left the house earlier than usual and didn't even say hello to me. I stood by the window and watched his car disappear around the corner, a little uneasy, but reassuring myself that he just needed time. I tried to keep myself busy during the day and went to the grocery store to pick up some groceries with the intention of making his favorite steak for the evening to make up for last night's mess. But when I got home, I froze when the door opened. A woman stood in the living room, tall, wearing a light gray nightgown and holding a cup of coffee as casually as if she were in her own home. She turned her head and smiled at me. "Oh, you must be Lily? My name is Sophie. I just got out of the shower, and James told me to wait here for him." My brain buzzed, and the shopping bag in my hand almost fell to the floor. "Who are you? You? What are you doing here?" My voice shook a little, and my tone was sharper than I wanted it to be. She shrugged as if she didn't notice my hostility. James brought me back last night and said he wanted to try a more comfortable sleep partner. I slept fine. Where is he? Before I could answer, there were footsteps on the stairs. James walked down, wearing a clean shirt and holding a towel for his hair. He glanced at me, his eyes so calm they made me bristle. Lily, you're back. Sophie slept through the night, and it fit pretty well, and I'd like to try it again tonight. He paused and turned to Sophie. Are you free tonight? Sophie nodded and smiled an easy smile. Of course I'm free. Your bed is quite comfortable. I stood there like I was nailed, a fire clogged in my throat, but I didn't know how to get it out. James, what's going on? You brought her back to bed. I finally squeezed out the words, my voice trembling like I was going to cry at any moment. He turned to me, his tone flat as if he were discussing the weather. Yeah, Lily. I thought you said everyone has needs. I didn't sleep well last night, tossing and turning thinking about you and that Evan. I need a good night's sleep and Sophie's quite suitable. That's all. That's all. I repeated his words, feeling like something was pressing down on my chest. You're getting back at me, aren't you? You're purposely making it hard for me. I stepped forward and tried to grab his arm, but he flicked it out of the way. His eyes were cold, but the corners of his mouth rose slightly, as if mocking my reaction. Revenge? No, 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 Lily. I'm just playing by your rules. You have your needs, I have mine. Didn't you also say that marriage shouldn't limit our pursuit of fulfillment? I didn't sleep with her. I just slept. Didn't you also say that it's not called betrayal? I opened my mouth to retort, but found every word stuck in my throat. He's right. That's how I explained it to him last night. But now that it's coming out of his mouth, it's like a knife in my heart. I turned to Sophie, who stood by, looking down and sipping her coffee like she hadn't heard anything. I grit my teeth and asked, so what's she doing here? What do you mean you let her hang around here? James shrugged. She just got out of the shower and will leave later. I slept well last night, and I think I can try it a couple more times. Lily, don't you have to make dinner? I smell steak. His tone was relaxed as if he was making a family conversation, but every word pierced me like a needle. I stared at him, trying to find some anger or pain in his face, but he just looked at me calmly, like a stranger. Over the next few days, it got worse. The next night, he came back with a woman named Rachel. She was more lively than Sophie and greeted me as she walked in the door. Hi, Lily. James said you cook pretty good. Can I stay for dinner tonight? Before I could say no, James picked up. Sure, Lily's cooking is so-so, but it fills the stomach. His comment made me blush, and I gritted my teeth and didn't say anything as I silently walked into the kitchen. At dinner, Rachel sat across from me and chatted about how comfortably she slept last night, saying that James' shoulder was especially reassuring to lean on. My hand clutched my fork was tight and white, and the fire in my heart was burning hotter and hotter, but I didn't dare to snap because I knew that if I opened my mouth, I'd lose even more. On the third day, he took another woman named Megan to the opera. It was an opera we went to every year together, and I remember how happy he was when we bought the tickets. But that night, he put on my favorite suit and stood in the doorway and said to me, Megan knows opera. She can talk to me about the plot. You stay home and get some rest. I'm tired of your cooking. Go out for a change. I froze on the couch, staring at him and Megan as they walked out the door, the remote nearly crushing in my hand. The moment the door closed, I felt a sudden emptiness I'd never felt before, like something had been drained from my body. Jealousy is spreading like poison in my heart. I began to lose sleep all night, and every time I heard his footsteps as he brought someone back, I couldn't help but sneak downstairs and look at the women's faces through the doorway. They were all different, but all had an ease and confidence that I didn't have. I began to wonder about myself. Was I really not good enough? Did he get tired of me a long time ago? I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my face, suddenly feeling that the once confident Lily was gone, replaced by a flustered and confused woman. At the end of the week, he brought back another woman named Olivia. This time I didn't hold back and rushed to James as she went upstairs to take a shower. What the hell do you want? Do you have to make me crazy to be satisfied? Do you have any idea how hard it is for me to bring these people back and have me watch them hang around here? My voice was almost a shout, tears welling up in my eyes. He leaned back on the couch and looked up at me, his tone as calm as ever. Hard? Lily, did you think about how hard it was for me when you told me last night that you slept with Evan? You say that's your need. I have mine now. I don't sleep well. These women make me sleep well, that's all. I thought you said it wasn't called betrayal. And I didn't sleep with them. So what are you complaining about? I was so dumbfounded by his words that tears finally fell from my eyes. I wanted to yell back, to tell him it was different, but I couldn't find a single retort that would stand up. He stood up and patted me on the shoulder like he was comforting a child who didn't know any better. Don't think too much, Lily. You go to your thing, I'll do mine. Fair enough. With that, he went upstairs, leaving me standing alone in the living room, sobbing and gasping for air. That night, as I lay in bed, listening to the light snoring coming from the next room, my heart felt like it was being emptied. I'm beginning to realize that this wasn't just a moment of anger or simple revenge on his part. He was using my logic to break me, and little by little, he was making me feel what it was like to be betrayed. I always thought that if I insisted, he would have to accept it, but now I realize that I underestimated him and the damage that my actions have done to him. I became afraid that he would really leave me, that this home, this marriage, would completely fall apart at my hands. That night, as I lay in bed, the snoring coming from the next room was like a dull knife, cutting into my heart one by one. I tossed and turned and couldn't sleep, filled with images of James returning with the women, Sophie's laugh, Rachel's casualness, Megan's opera tickets, and Olivia's whispering. My tears had long since dried up. My eyes were so dry they hurt, but my heart felt like it was stuffed with messy threads that I couldn't make sense of. I always thought I was in control of the situation, that James would compromise like he always did, but now I realized that he wasn't arguing with me. He was cutting me off. That indifference was worse than the roar because it made me feel like I no longer existed. I clutched the covers and whispered to myself, "He won't really go. He won't." But that sounds unbelievable even to me. When I came downstairs the next morning, James was already in the kitchen making coffee. He was wearing the same shirt from yesterday, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and looked calm as if nothing had happened. I stood at the top of the stairs and hesitated before opening my mouth. "James, we need to talk." He didn't look up, just said faintly, "Talk about what, Lily? Haven't you made that clear?" I bit my lip and walked over to stand across from him. "I know you're angry, and I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that to you. I really regret it." He finally looked up at me, his eyes as cold as a winter lake. "Regret? So what are you going to do? Stop, or keep sneaking around looking for your Evans?" There was a hint of mockery in his tone, like he was testing me. I took a deep breath and tried to sound firm. "I'm not going to do that again, James. I swear. All I want is you, and I don't want to lose you." I reached out to touch his arm, but he avoided it with a slight sidestep. His movement made my heart sink, but I continued. "I love you, and I know I've hurt you, but I'll change. We can start over, okay?" He was silent for a moment, looking down and stirring his coffee, then looked up, the corners of his mouth rising slightly in a smile that gave me the creeps. "Starting over? Lily, does this look to you like something you can erase and start over? You rolled around in our bed with another man, and now you tell me you love me and want to start over." He puts down his spoon and braces his hands on the counter, staring at me. "Do you know how well I slept with Olivia last night? She didn't make me wake up in the middle of the night thinking about what my wife was doing. She just slept there, peacefully. Can you give me this?" I froze, tears starting to well up in my eyes again. I opened my mouth to retort, but he was right. I had ruined too many things. I whispered, "I can try, James. I'll prove it to you." But he shook his head and interrupted me. "Proof? No need, Lily. I don't want to try it again. I've had enough of your needs, and now it's my turn." He picks up his coffee, turns and walks away, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen at a loss for words. Over the next few days, I tried to get closer to him, but he stood in front of me like a wall. He still brings women back, sometimes Olivia, sometimes new faces, like a woman named Hannah who smiles like a flower in spring. Every time I see them, it's like pins and needles in my heart, but I don't dare to lose my temper anymore because I know that will only make him colder. I started cooking for him, picking out his favorite dishes, and even tried to talk to him about work, but he always walked away after a few words. Once I walked up to him with a freshly baked apple pie, and he gave me a cold look and said, "Lily, your cooking is still so average. I'm going out to eat with Hannah tomorrow, and she recommended a good restaurant." I broke down. That night, I hid in my bedroom and cried all night, my pillow soaked with tears. I finally realized that he wasn't just fooling around in a fit of pique, He was really punishing me with my words. I ran to the bathroom and yelled down at myself in the mirror. What the hell did you do, Lily? You drove him to this. I smashed the mirror and scratched a bloody mark on the back of my hand. But that little pain was no match for the pain in my heart. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let him torture me and himself like this anymore. The next day, I got up the courage to say to him, James, if you want to punish me, then get a divorce. I know I was wrong, and I'm willing to let go and set you free. I tried to keep my voice as smooth as possible, but the tears still fell uncontrollably. I expected him to nod. After all, he already hated me so much. But he put down the newspaper in his hand and looked up at me with eyes as cold as ice. Divorce? Lily, you're thinking too simply. You think I'm going to let you walk away so easily? I froze, my voice shaking. What do you mean? Aren't you already with those women? What else do you want? He stood up, approached me, and whispered, I'm going to show you how much it hurts when you ruin my life. If you're getting a divorce, try it. I'll drag this out until you break down. I would quit my job and leave myself without a penny of income. I'll cry in court and say I want you back and make the judge think I'm a good betrayed husband. What about you? You'll be a slut who abandons her family. How long do you think you'll last? I stepped back and hit the wall, my heart beating like it was going to explode. James, are you crazy? Why are you being like this? You're not like that. He sneered and leaned close to my ear. I'm not that kind of person? Then you're not the one who's going to betray me, Lily. But you did. The person I am now, you made me. He straightened up and turned to walk away, leaving me sitting paralyzed on the floor, my mind blank. The next few days were like a nightmare. He still brings women home, sometimes on purpose so I can hear them laughing, but he doesn't even say much to me. I tried apologizing, I tried begging him, but every time he just looked at me coldly, like he was looking at a stranger. I started losing sleep, I lost 10 pounds, and I looked like a ghost in the mirror. My mom, Ellen, finally looked away. She suddenly appeared at my door that day, and when she saw my haggard appearance, her eyes instantly reddened. Lily, how did you get yourself into such a state? What about him? Where is he? I whispered. He's upstairs, with a woman named Hannah. Ellen frowned and rushed upstairs without saying a word. I followed her, my heart beating like a drum. She pushed open the door to James' room, where he was sitting on the edge of the bed with Hannah leaning over his shoulder reading a book. Ellen ignored Hannah and went straight to James. Have you had enough? Are you satisfied with driving her to her death? She knows she's wrong. She begs for forgiveness. What do you want? Either have a good time with her or let go and stop torturing her so much. James looked up at Ellen, his tone frighteningly calm. She ruined the family, not me. She wants a divorce. I'm giving her her freedom, but she has to pay for it. Ellen's voice shook with anger. The cost? You've already made her life worse than death. What good does it do you to torture her in cold blood like this? Hannah looks up like she's going to say something, but James waves his hand to keep her quiet. He stood up and walked over to Ellen. She didn't think about how I felt when she betrayed me. Now she knows, that's all. Ellen stared at him for half a day before finally sighing and turning to pull me downstairs. She pinned me down on the couch and whispered, Lily, this man is not the James you know anymore. He won't forgive you. You have to let go. I cried and shook my head. I don't want a divorce. I want him back. She touched my face, her voice choking. Son, he's not giving you that chance anymore. I'm going to talk to him, and he's either going to let it go or I'm going to take you. She went upstairs again, louder this time. James, listen. You either agree to a divorce or I take Lily. You can't ruin her like that. I sat downstairs, listening to their argument, and my heart felt like it was being torn to pieces. After a long time, Ellen came down with a tired look on her face. He agreed, Lily. He said he'd sign it. I froze, unable to stop the tears. He really agreed? She nodded and hugged me. It's good for both of you. You need to let go. That night, James came downstairs and looked at me, didn't say anything, just grabbed a glass of water and left. I sat on the couch and watched his back, suddenly feeling like the house was empty. He agreed to a divorce, but I didn't feel relieved at all, rather like I had lost my last bit of support. I know that I ruined it all for myself, but knowing that fact doesn't make me feel any better. The moment James agreed to the divorce, I thought I would breathe a sigh of relief, but when he turned to leave the living room and walked upstairs with the glass of water, I felt a choking emptiness. Ellen sat beside me, patted my back and whispered, "It's good for you, Lily. It's over. You can start over." But I looked up at her, tears blurring my vision. "Mom, I don't want it to end. I ruined it, but I still love him." She sighed and hugged me, stroking my hair like she did when I was little, but her comfort didn't fill the hole in my heart. That night, I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, my mind filled with images of James, his once gentle smile, his now cold eyes, and the women he'd brought back. I know that I brought this all on myself, but knowing the truth doesn't make me feel any better. A few days later, we signed the divorce papers. Ellen accompanied me to the lawyer's office, her hand holding mine the whole time, like she was afraid I was going to break down at any moment. My hand was shaking so much I could barely complete the document as I signed it, Lily Harper. The lawyer, an expressionless middle-aged man, pushed up his glasses and said, "James' side is signed off on, so I'll see you guys in court tomorrow." I nodded, but my mind went blank. Ellen drove me home, and she tried to talk to me along the way, but I just stared out the window, my heart feeling like it was being emptied. When I got home, I walked into the bedroom and saw the bed we'd picked out together, with the same sheets I'd changed last time, and suddenly broke down. I flung myself onto the bed and buried my face in the pillow, crying like a baby. I destroyed my home, my marriage, and James, who is now mine, is no longer mine. The day of court came too soon. I sat on a bench in the courthouse, paper towels clutched in my hand, my nails digging into my palms, the pain sobering me up a little. James stood a few paces away, leaning against the wall, wearing a dark gray suit and looking calm as a bystander. He didn't look at me, didn't even glance my way, like I didn't even exist. I stared at his back, remembering the day of our wedding, when he smiled at me in a similar suit and said, "Lily, you're the best decision I've ever made in my life." Now what? I became his worst nightmare. When the clerk called us in, my legs were so weak I could barely stand up. I followed James into the courtroom, the sound of my heels on the floor like a countdown, each step reminding me that this was coming to an end. The courtroom was cold, and the judge was a balding, middle-aged man with a voice so flat it sounded like he was reading a menu. He asked a few questions, and James answered crisply, "Yes, Your Honor." "No, Your Honor. I agree with the terms." His voice was so smooth it sent chills down my spine. "And what about me?" Every time he opens his mouth, it's like cotton in his throat, and his voice breaks. "Yes, Your Honor." When the judge pronounced the marriage officially dissolved, I felt like I'd been punched in the chest and couldn't breathe. After the ceremony, James turned to leave, and I suddenly called out to him, "James, wait." The voice trembled like it was about to crack. He stopped and turned around, the same cold expression on his face. "Yes, Lily." The courtroom was almost empty, except for a clerk packing papers and the security guard at the door. I stood there, staring at him, tears falling uncontrollably. I don't know how to let go. I don't know how to deal with this. I ruined us, I know, but I still love you. Can you forgive me?" He didn't move, just looked at me quietly, hands in his pockets, like a stranger. His silence made me panic even more, and I choked out, "I was wrong, James. I'd do anything to make up for it. I don't want it to end like this." I took a step forward, trying to get closer to him, but he stepped back, keeping his distance. His voice was low and firm. "You made a choice, Lily. I did too. That's what we got." He paused, his eyes finally wavering a bit, but not with the tenderness I was looking for, but with exhaustion. "You love me? That doesn't matter anymore. Love is not enough, Lily. Not enough to fix what you smashed." I covered my face, tears streaming from my fingers. "I'm willing to turn back. I'm willing to change. I'm willing to give up anything if you just give me a chance." I was practically begging, but his expression didn't change. He sighed, as if ending a long argument. "You'll be fine, Lily. You'll find a way to go on." "Me too." He paused, his voice so low it was almost inaudible. "You used to mean a lot to me. That's why this hurts so much. But now it's over. There's nothing more to say." He turned and walked away, the door to the courtroom slamming behind him, and the sound exploded in my ears like thunder. I dropped onto the bench next to me and covered my face with my hands, sobbing and gasping for air. The clerk looked up at me, shook his head, and walked away. I sat there and felt like the whole world had collapsed. I ruined my marriage, I ruined James, and I ruined myself. And now he's gone, taking the wounds I gave him with him. and I can't hold on to anything. The days after the divorce were like a nightmare. I moved out of that home and into a small apartment, but every night I still couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, it's James back, or the sound of those women laughing. I started drinking whiskey after whiskey, trying to numb myself, but the alcohol only made me more conscious of the pain. My mom Ellen was shocked when she came to see me. Her voice was shaking as she snatched the bottle out of my hand. "Lily, you can't go on like this. Look at yourself, like a ghost." I looked up at her, my voice hoarse. "I deserved it, Mom. I drove him away, and now he hates me. I even hate myself." She hugged me, tears falling on my shoulders. "You were wrong. You have to forgive yourself. You all need to move on." But I shook my head. "He went forward, Mom. He doesn't look back. But what about me? I can't walk out." During that time, I was as thin as a bamboo pole. My hair was as messy as a bird's nest, and I even lost my job. I tried to see a therapist, but every time I talk about James, I cry so much I can't talk about it. One night, I had too much to drink and was lying on the floor, feeling my heart slowing down like it was going to stop. I dialed Ellen's number, my voice weak as a mosquito. "Mom, I can't. I want to die." She came all night and took me to the hospital. The white lights in the emergency room stung my eyes. The doctor sedated me, and I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, I was lying in a single room with Ellen sitting on the edge of the bed, her eyes red like she hadn't slept. I whispered, "I don't want to live, Mom. I ruined everything." She held my hand, her voice choked. "You didn't ruin everything, Lily. You're still here. You still have me. You have to live, even if it's for me." The hospital days were like a long ordeal. I stare out the window every day, watching people come and go on the street, all of them living their lives while I feel like I'm stuck in the past and can't get out. The nurse brought me medicine, which I mechanically swallowed, but my heart was as empty as a shell. Ellen came by every day, brought some food, and talked to me about the family, but I knew she was worried. She tried to cheer me up, but I just shook my head every time. "I deserved it, Mom. I don't deserve a fresh start." Ellen picked me up the day I was discharged from the hospital. She sat across from me, her tone firm. "Lily, you have to live. You can't let him ruin you or yourself." I looked at her and the tears fell again. "He didn't destroy me, I destroyed him. Now he's gone and I have nothing." She sighed and touched my face. "You still have time, Lily. You've got to find a way out for yourself." Lying in my hospital bed, I finally realized that it wasn't James' fault and it wasn't Ellen's fault. All by myself. I betrayed him, forced him away, and now I have to deal with this empty life. But I don't know how to start, how to make it hurt less. I closed my eyes, tears sliding down my cheeks, and all I could think was that I had really lost him, forever. The day I was discharged, I stood in front of the hospital, and the wind blew across my face, so cold that it made me shiver. Ellen was holding my arm, carrying a small duffel bag containing my change of clothes for the last few days and a couple bottles of medicine. She looked up at me, her voice soft as if she was afraid of scaring me. "Lily, let's go home. You need to get some rest." I nodded, but my heart felt like it was stuffed with cotton, so heavy that I didn't even have the strength to take a step. I looked at the people coming and going on the street. They were in a hurry, like they had somewhere to be, and me? I don't even know where I'm going. I ruined my marriage, I ruined James, and now I barely even recognize myself. Ellen pulled me into the car, and she didn't say a word the whole way, just occasionally reached out and patted my hand, like she was telling me she was still there. Back at her house, I no longer had the face to go back to my own apartment. I sat on the couch in the living room and stared out the window at the old oak tree. When I was a kid, I always loved to climb up there, and James would sometimes stand at the bottom and laugh and yell at me to come down, saying he was afraid I'd fall. When I think about it now, the images are blurry and jarring like an old movie. I whispered to Ellen, "Mom, I'm really done. I don't know how to live." She put down the teapot she was holding and came over to sit next to me, taking my hand in hers. "You're not done, Lily. You're still here. You're still alive. You've got to give yourself a chance." I shook my head, tears falling again. "I don't deserve the chance. I drove him away, and now he hates me. I deserve this." Ellen sighed, a hint of helplessness in her voice. "He doesn't hate you, Lily. He just, let it go. You have to let go too. You can't stay stuck in the past." I looked up at her, tears blurring my vision. Letting go? How do I put it? He's everything to me. I ruined us, and now that he's gone, I have nothing left." She touched my face, her tone firming up. "You still have me. You still have yourself. You have to live for yourself, even if it comes little by little." During that time, I was like an empty shell. Ellen forces me to eat something every day, walks with me, and even got me a therapist named Rebecca. She was a gentle, middle-aged woman with thin-rimmed glasses and a voice so soft it felt like it could wrap around a person. The first time we met, she asked me to tell her about James, and I couldn't stop crying just before I opened my mouth. She handed me tissues and waited quietly until I could catch my breath. She said, "Lily, you don't think you deserve to be forgiven, but you have to ask yourself, do you want to keep punishing yourself like this?" I whispered, "I don't know. All I know is that I destroyed my home." She nodded and didn't push me, just said, "Then let's start with acceptance. Accept what happened, and then see what else you can do." Accepted? I can't even think about it. Every night, I dreamed of James, of him turning away coldly, of the women standing around him and laughing. I always wake up with my pillow wet and my heart beating so fast it feels like it's going to explode. Rebecca told me to keep a journal and spit out those emotions. I tried to write it, but I tore it up halfway through each time because the words hurt too much and cut me like a knife. Ellen was heartbroken when she saw me like this, and at one point she hugged me and cried, "Lily, you're my daughter, and I can't watch you go on like this. You have to try, even for me." Slowly, I began to listen to her. Not because I believe I can get better, but because I don't want her to cry again. Rebecca asked me to join a support group of people who were pretty much like me. Divorced, lost a loved one, felt like they had nothing. The first time I went, I sat in the corner with my head down, afraid to speak. A man named Tom told his story about how his wife ran off with someone else, leaving him and his 2 children behind. "I've hated her, but hating won't solve the problem," he said in a hoarse voice. "I have to live for my children." As I listened, tears fell from my eyes, but my heart felt like it was being hammered. He could do it for the kids. What about me? Who can I do it for? As time went by, I started trying to find something to do for myself. Ellen taught me how to cook, and I learned to toast bread on my hands and knees. And even though it burned several times, she laughed and ate it. My meetings with Rebecca went from weekly to bi-weekly, and gradually I was able to talk more. In the support group, I started to open up, telling my story, how I betrayed James and lost him. Someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're brave to speak up." I laughed bitterly. Brave? I just don't have anywhere to hide. 2 years passed, and I moved out of Ellen's house and got a small apartment. Jobs were hard to come by, but I relied on Ellen's connections to work as a cashier in a bookstore. Every day when I stare at the bookshelf, I think of James and how he's doing. One day I ran into an old friend of his, Nathan, at the grocery store. He saw me and froze for a moment, then said, "Lily, it's been a long time. James, he's married. You know what?" I nearly dropped the basket in my hand and managed to squeeze out a smile. "Really? That's pretty good. Is he doing well?" Nathan nodded. "Pretty good. He married a widow, Amelia. They have a daughter." I whispered, "That's good." When I got home, I sat on the couch and stared at the ceiling, tears falling down my face. But this time it wasn't the kind of pain that tore at my heart, but a sour release. He's got a new life, a family, and me. I'm still here, alive and breathing. When Ellen came to visit, I told her, "Mom, he's married and a dad." She looked at me with a little worry in her eyes. "Are you okay?" I nodded and wiped away my tears. "Good. I'm happy for him. He deserves these." 5 years have gone by, 5 years like a long dream. I still go to Rebecca's, although now it's just an occasional chat. She says I've made a lot of progress, but I know that the hole in my heart is still there. It just doesn't hurt as much. I got promoted at the bookstore, managed a few people, and life was as simple as plain water. Ellen is old and her hair is quite gray, but she still comes over to my place, brings me some cookies she's made, and talks to me about the neighborhood. I started running, in the mornings, along the paths in the park, watching the sun come up and feeling like I could finally catch my breath. Sometimes I'd stand on the balcony and look at the streetlights in the distance and think of James and the day I betrayed him. That was the biggest mistake of my life. I ruined us, but I also ruined myself for years. Now, I've learned to accept, not to forgive, but to accept. I can't quite let myself go, and it still hurts me every time I think of him being happy, but I don't let myself get caught up in it anymore. I knew he had his way, and I, too, had to go mine. That night, I sat at my desk and flipped through an old diary with a picture of James and me tucked inside. It was taken when we were first married, and he had his arm around me and was smiling like a child. I touched the picture and tears fell, but I didn't cry out. I whispered, "I'm sorry, James. I wish you well." Then I put the photo back in my journal, closed the book, and walked out onto the balcony. The night breeze blew by and I closed my eyes, feeling lighter at last, not because I had forgotten, but because I had learned to look ahead. I'm alive, and I have to live for myself, even if it's just slowly, one step at a time. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.